Episode 248. Come close and I'll kill her. When Jake's car pulled onto Jackson's driveway, he could sense something was off. Inside the luxuriously decorated European-style room, the vintage-patterned curtains blocked all the light. The room was dimly lit, and one bottle after another was lying on the floor, next to the man. On the big bed in the middle of the room, a large piece of bloodstain was shocking to look at. In the whole room, the alcohol smell was mixed with blood, and it was unpleasant and sickening. Jackson leaned against the edge of the bed, holding a wine bottle in his hand. The thin beige shirt on his body was covered with blood. His drunken eyes clearly reflected the long and straight figure. "You came." Jackson smiled, but his tears rolled down again. "Jake, huh?" Jake had not expected to walk on such a scene. Bloody, violent, decadent. At this moment, Jackson looked nothing like himself. This was clearly a poor toad, someone who was lost and afraid. His first reaction was to check Jackson's body. "Are you injured?" The big hand pulled his clothes open and found that his skin was smooth. No bleeding whatsoever. Jackson pushed him away and said, "It's not me, it's her. All her." Jake was a bit shocked, but much more relaxed. Gazing at him, he asked coldly, "Is she dead? You killed her?" With so much blood, it was either death or a serious injury. But how did Jackson have the heart to do this? He liked that woman so much. Jackson's eyes were half open. He took a long breath and chuckled. "The blood belongs to my child. My baby is gone. I killed my own child." "What do you mean?" Jake looked at him, took his bottle and threw it aside. "Is that woman pregnant? She miscarried?" Jake shut his eyes, tears streaming down his cheeks. He said painfully, "She wants to break up with me. She actually wrote down how much I paid for her over the years and threw the books at me, saying that she will pay me back." "Then did you hit her?" "Hit her? How could I do that?" Jackson reached out to touch the bottle and his hands were shaking. Jake was quick-eyed, holding his hand and looking at him. "How can there be so much blood? What did you do?" Jackson's hands trembled even more. He watched Jake holding his head and shaking his head. "I don't know if she's pregnant. If I'd have known, I would have definitely not treated her like that. I did not mean it, but..." "You got her in bed?" So, that was why there was so much blood in bed. Jackson did not speak, only looked at him fixedly. This attitude was tantamount to a yes. "You..." Jake suddenly found that he didn't know what to say. He wanted to scold him, but did not have the heart to do it, seeing him like this. "Where is she?" In the room, smelling of liquor and blood, Jackson Roberts looked at him and said with a low voice, "She was sent to the hospital and the surgery has been done. The baby is more than 2 months old. She did not tell me. She was planning to run away and then have an abortion secretly. She didn't even give me a chance to know. She didn't want to stay with me. She didn't want to have my baby. For years I loved her dearly and she felt nothing for me." "I told you that woman is an ungrateful person. How many times have I told you not to fall for her? And you..." Jake looked away in a fret. "So where is she now?" "In the hospital. She does not want to see me. She hates me. What should I do? She wanted to break up with me in the first place. After this, how am I ever going to stop her from leaving?" After a moment of silence, Jake said, "Don't think about that. Get up and change and get to the hospital to keep her company. She doesn't want to see me. She has to. You are her baby's father. You have the right and need to take care of her. It's up to her to hate you, but you must shoulder the responsibility. Jackson, get up. He lifted his 6-foot-tall friend up rudely. Seeing the huge blood stain on the bed, Jackson paused for a second before getting his clothes. Jake was right. It was up to her to hate him, but he must do what he should do. He wiped his face with a wet tissue and looked at himself in the mirror, suddenly smiling. Every time when he was helpless, Jake could always manage to encourage him. He felt like he did not deserve to have such a good friend and brother. Regardless of what would happen in the future, Jackson knew Jake would have his back always, he thought as he buttoned his shirt. However, before he finished changing, he heard the ringtone of Jake's cell phone. He heard him answer the call. It was from Keith Robinson. There was heavy breathing, and Keith's voice was a little anxious. At the same time, there were noises from a sports car engine. "Brother, Serena was kidnapped! Come back soon!" Jake was shocked. He immediately rushed out. Jackson was shocked by his sudden move. "Where are you going?" No response. Serena watched the Bugatti leave and then entered her home with Vanessa. However, Vanessa suddenly frowned, turned sideways, and directly punched in Serena's direction. She was shocked and let out a yelp, and then she heard a thump. A short man was knocked down by Vanessa, and Serena was still reeling from the blow. Vanessa put the short man down, but when she raised her eyes, her expression suddenly changed, and she roared. The 2 bodyguards who stood at the door heard the noises, and immediately came to help. Serena was shocked and was able to turn back, but then her hand was suddenly caught. A strong arm wrapped around her neck, and something cold touched her neck. "Come close and I will kill her." The voice was cold and sounded rough and familiar. Michael Cox. Serena did not dare to move. However, her body could not stop shaking slightly. Breathing rapidly, she was extremely anxious. Vanessa and the 2 bodyguards immediately stopped their movements. The 5 men behind Michael Cox were walking forward. Each of them had a long steel pipe in their hands. At this time, Serena calmed down and said, "You don't want to be impulsive. If anything happens, he won't forgive you." Michael sneered, ignored her, looked at the several bodyguards and said, "Such obedient dogs. Ask Jake to go to the abandoned warehouse in the eastern suburbs alone. If not, the consequences are at his own risk." Then, he stepped back holding Serena, got in the car, and went away.